I know.
You'll get more tax revenue, and then
Yeah.
you're making money.
It's hot. It'll be hot.
Good evening. We'll call to order Wilsonville City Council meeting for, what are we today? November 5, 2018 at 7:46 p.m. Apologize for being a little late. We have absolutely a jam-packed work session ahead of you. Request a roll call, please.
Councillor Stevens? Here. Council President Starr?
Here.
Councillor Ackerval?
Here.
Councillor Lehan?
Here.
Mayor Knapp?
Here. Would the audience please rise and join us in a Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And I would entertain a motion on order of agenda.
Your Honor, I move that we approve the order of agenda.
Second.
Moved and second, we approve order of agenda. Copies are available to the side of the room if anyone would like to see. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, passes 5-0. First item up is communications, where we have people from TVFNR, Chief Weiss, I think, and others. Please come on up and make yourself at home at a microphone there and tell us what we need to know.
Well, thank you. Good evening, Mayor Knapp, councilors. My name is Derek Weiss. I'm an assistant chief with Tualatin Valley Fire and Rescue, and my role is operations. So I'm responsible for the fire stations, the personnel, the rigs driving down the road, fire prevention, planning, and a few other odds and ends. And it's my pleasure this evening to present the fire district's State of the District for the city of Wilsonville. I might add, I am the chief that lives in your fine city, and I have so for a number of years now. My daughters both attend the high school, and I'd like to get them to roar like a wildcat, but I feel like they're too nice to meow more. And I want to get aggressive, but they both play soccer for the high school and had a great year this year, and so I look forward to many more years here in the city. We can start with this first slide, and I think this is one way to do it. There we are. So we'll get to it and roll through some stuff that's happened in the district over the past year. A couple years ago, 2016, the city of Newburgh and the surrounding area, Newburgh Rural Fire District, both asked us to provide contract services for those areas. And in this past year, they voted to annex into Tualatin Valley Fire and Rescue. And then the citizens of Tualatin Valley Fire and Rescue then had to vote whether or not to invite them in to our jurisdiction. And we did so with a 97% approval rating. So both those areas, they struggled with staffing, they struggled to provide the services, and they looked to Tualatin Valley Fire and Rescue to join us and provide services for them. It's a benefit to everybody. We'll talk about some other stations that came online this year as well, but it makes the district slightly bigger and more personnel as well. This map, or this graphic that you see here, this is one of the standard things that we do on an ongoing basis to evaluate how we're doing in response areas. This is the city of Wilsonville. So it covers the first 6 months of 2018. If you look at the top under total incident count, it's just about 1,300 calls for service in the Wilsonville city area. If I direct your attention towards the left-hand side where it says EMS, that shows that 83.2% of the calls that we get called on in Wilsonville are medical calls. Right below that, where it says 964 or 74.4%, that's actually what the call is when we get there. So dispatch, WAC is our communications center. They receive the 911 call. They dispatch us for what they think the call will be. After they get there, the crews fill out a report, and it documents exactly what they were there for. So 74% medical calls is very common, standard across the country, standard for our service area as well. As you move down, there's been a few structure fires. And then at the bottom of the screen, the reason I brought this to your attention is that we keep track of all the calls that we run by hour of day and day of week. We determine our staffing levels and what resources we put on the road based on the need that goes across those different timelines and those days of the week. So as you can see, it's fairly steady around the week for the city of Wilsonville. We have staffing of a truck and an engine and a medic unit, or sorry, a rescue unit for the city of Wilsonville. And they get to the calls of those 1,300 calls most of the time. If you move a little further to the right at the bottom, it says top station responses for this area. Station 52 is on the other side of the freeway at Kinsman. Station 56 is up north on Ellingson. You would expect that those two stations respond to the bulk of calls in Wilsonville, and they do. We keep an eye on that because what that tells us is, do we have to bring other stations into the area to supplement the services that you get here from your two fire stations? And if we do so, then that tells us we might have to look at making changes, either staffing changes, apparatus changes, or station changes. And at the top is one of our heat maps. We do this for the entire district, but this is specific to the city of Wilsonville. And as the call volume increases, it gets a little bit brighter, gets a little bit lighter. And this kind of shows you what you would think. You probably know the two areas that are the lightest in this picture. And it speaks to the calls that we have, which are 74% medical calls, which is what we go to. This is Rosemont Station 55. We opened it, it's been a month ago now, maybe a little bit more than that. This is up on the hill in West Lynn. We put a truck up there, and they have an engine they can swing into if they need to, if it's a fire and they're the first unit to respond. All of these stations strengthen our entire system. We'll talk a bit about that later, but it's where you have the structure of stations, they work together, they move around constantly to respond to the calls. And this is another one of those stations that's able to do that. We found through our studies and some of the data map that you saw before that that area on top of the hill was a challenge to get to because of the geography, the topography, and just where the stations were located. So this was part of our levy that we did several years ago, and we're happy to say that this station is now open and online. So I talked a little bit about data, and as you were probably aware, Tualatin Valley Fire and Rescue is driven by data. We don't make our decisions based on the data, but they certainly drive the decisions that we make. We look at population density, the incident call types that we go to, what does the traffic systems look like, how can we get around, and what's the topography? I talked about topography before. Station 55, you can see it's towards the, right there middle, Westland above 205. You move towards us right now, 57, 56, and 52 are all in those areas. Down below, we still have the Charbonneau area where we intend to place a station when we can, and we also have a new station that should be coming online up around 62. So if you look up there by Hillsborough, where 62 sits right now, through data and analysis, we realized that, quite frankly, the city of Hillsborough moved a bit. And so that station, while it was located in the perfect location at the time it was built, now moving it slightly to the east and north gives us better response to the incidents we have in that area. This one doesn't have the highlighted where it shows you all the call types, but if we were to overlay that kind of a map on this one, you could see why these stations are located in locations that they are. Charbonneau, we continue, as I mentioned, we continue to look for a site in Charbonneau. We've looked at some properties, we've looked at some structures, we've looked at some land, and we keep trying to get there, and we just haven't been able to do it yet. It is clearly on our radar. We are continuing to look for locations to have a station sited in that area, and we will continue to do so until we find something. So over this year, we took on a couple initiatives. On the left-hand side, you'll see SCBA bottles on the right-hand side of the masks that we wear. Of course, these are what we wear when we go into fires, and what we found out is they will come to the end of their service life in the next 5 years. So we engaged in an analysis with our partners in Washington County, some of the different fire agencies, to see if we could all select the same breathing apparatus, the same mask, and get a grant to help pay for those costs. So hopefully within the next 3 to 5 years, we will secure the grant. We've already done the analysis and the study, and we will purchase new breathing apparatus for all of our personnel. Of course, that's a hose with water coming out of it, and it's a great story because several years ago, we found out that some of our larger diameter hose like this was failing. And it wasn't just a little bit of our hose, it was a lot of our hose, which is, of course, how we supply water to a fire. Rather than just replace the hose that was failing with brand new hose, we went into a long study analysis of what is the right thing to do, where the water comes out of the hydrant or a water source and the water is sprayed on a fire. And we evaluated everything from that point through the engine forward to come up with what is the best way to fight a fire. And you might be thinking that we've been doing this for hundreds of years, what could you possibly change? And the reality is there's a lot you can change. When we started doing the study on our hose, we found out that hose that used to be 3 inches is now something short of it. I liken it to a 2x4. It's not a 2x4 anymore when you buy lumber. Hose was the same way, but if you go with the correct size diameter hose and you have the right nozzle to spray water, you can actually spray more water with less pressure than we do right now. Less pressure means less nozzle reaction, less pressure means it's easier to move around, more water means you can put the fire out faster. So this is an endeavor with 430 firefighters in a fire agency to change what they're doing. And it's a little bit if I were to put a Coca-Cola and a Pepsi and a Sprite out here, and I had to convince all of you that we're going to drink Sprite tonight, it would be a challenge. It's doing the same thing with 430 firefighters. They all have their opinions. They all think they know what's going to be best. And so it was time-consuming study and then a lot of training over the last year and a half to implement the new hose package and the new nozzles. I'm very proud of this because operations is my part of the fire district. It's important to me to get the fires fast and get the fires out quickly and save people when we can. And we recently had a fire with the new hose package and new nozzle package that I want to share a little bit with you. It was a fire in the middle of the night. And there was a deck in front of the house. It was all wood, and it was wood siding. And the fire went through the deck up to the front of the house and up into the attic space. And when our first crews arrived, the front of the house was fully involved. So they engaged in an initial fire attack. About 2 minutes later, the truck company arrived. It was a truck company that we put in service not too long ago. Their primary mission is search and rescue. So they have a fully involved house. We have hose lines to the front of the house, and they're supposed to do a rescue of this fully involved structure. When the battalion chief called me at home, he wanted to let me know that crews were initiating an interior attack, and they were in the rafters. And if you're familiar with home building construction, the rafters hold the roof up. But they weren't in the attic, they were on the first floor. The fire had burned so long that the rafters were coming down onto the first floor of this structure. So the crews were in there doing an aggressive attack. The hose was in place and gave them just enough time to do a primary search. And primary search, and I want to make sure I get the time right, in the first 9 minutes after arrival, the first fire victim was found. 11 minutes after arrival, the second victim was found, and 14 minutes after that, the third victim was found. This is a fire that normally we probably wouldn't make entry because it's a fully involved structure. But because of the hose package we have in place and the aggressive work by the crews, they stopped the fire at a point where they could get crews in and do a search, and we found 3 victims. It is an absolute testament to the crews and, quite frankly, the equipment that we were using. So thank you for giving me the time to share that story. It's super important to me, but it's an exceptional deal with exceptional people working on it, and we had a good outcome. Other equipment that we've been working on in this past year, we upgraded all of our medical kits. We found through a study brought to us from some of our firefighters that our kits weren't ergonomically correct. It was challenging to find equipment in our medical kits when they're on a medical call. And as you know, seconds count. So to be able to know where the equipment is that they need to use on a moment's notice is critical. They brought these new kits to us. We helped design certain pieces of them. Everything's in the same place. They can find it every time when they look for it. And so we put those into service this year. On the right-hand side is what's called a video laryngoscope. Before the video laryngoscope, it would be just that black piece that's in the person's left hand. There would be no screen there. And somewhat blindly, a paramedic would try to move that tube down a patient's throat in order to slide an airway breathing tube in behind it. It's quite challenging to do. Technology being what it is, now they make the same piece of equipment with a video camera on the end of it. And while I'm not trained to intubate a patient, I could do this with a mannequin if necessary. It makes things much more efficient, more accurate, and we can get that tube placed where it needs to be placed in a shorter period of time. So we invested in video laryngoscopes, and they have been deployed into the field. We can also use the recordings for training that we have, similar to what this picture depicts. So I talked a little bit about how all the stations impact the city of Wilsonville, and quite frankly, they do. When we were able to put a station in West Lynn, when we were able to increase staffing, we went for a rewrite with our insurance services office, and we had a 3 and a 10 and some other numbers before, and now Tualatin Valley Fire and Rescue residents enjoy a Class 2. So insurance companies, if you were to call them, this is the fire portion of your insurance rating. If you live within 5 miles of a fire station, you now have a 2. And then it changes from there. So because of our infrastructure, because investing in equipment and apparatus, because of the training, community risk reduction that we do, fire prevention we do, all those factor into an ISO rating, and we now enjoy a 2 for TVFNR. I would point out that we're in the top 3% of roughly 46,000 fire departments that do this rating. So it was outstanding for an organization. We're very proud of this rating. And we have a levy renewal that it will be coming around. The last levy we put in front of the voters, I think this one will be due in June of 2020. So we plan for a renewal in May of 2019. We will continue to support the 45 cents per thousand assessed value that we have right now. That's what we promised voters before. That's what we will do. It supports more than 79 firefighters and staff that we brought on board, plus the stations that we would like to build in the future. And we continue to be good on what we've promised voters in the past. And with that, I will answer any questions you might have.
Well, it sounds like you've got your hands full managing all those operations, so appreciate the fact that you've achieved the high-class rating and the advantages that brings, if not specifically in Wilsonville, then across the whole area. I mean, Wilsonville was already a 2, right, or not?
Should have been 3.
So Wilsonville in the city has actually increased?
Yeah, within 5 miles of a fire station.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's district-wide, right?
It's district-wide. There are some areas, if you're outside 7 miles, then you go into a 10W, which is a new category that they didn't really have before. There was a whole bunch of different numbers in between that you could be, an 8, a 5Y, a few other things. Now we're a 2, and then there's some 10W that's also out there. It's worth calling your insurance to see.
On your data that you were showing for Wilsonville, it had an acronym of MWMVC. Is that multiple
MVC.
vehicle crash?
Motor vehicle collision, yeah.
Do you know how many of those, I think 10 I saw, are related to I-5 specifically?
So in order to do that, I can go back, maybe. There we are, that one.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah, so you're looking at MVCs.
With injury and unknown injury.
Correct. So we can dive into that data.
I was just
but
curious if
yeah,
you knew.
Couldn't,
I would assume that I-5 would be a majority of those, but I don't know.
yeah, I-5 Wilsonville Road. Being as I live here, I hear it quite a bit coming in. You do get I-5, you do get Wilsonville Road, a little bit of Advance, Stafford, going out towards the north. We get some there too. The only way to tell you exactly what those calls are, where they are, is to dive into the data, which we can certainly do.
I was just curious.
Yeah.
You don't need to dive for me.
Okay. Okay.
Can you describe the dynamic with the idea about a Charbonneau station, and what would that change, or how would that affect the community?
Well, so we use our stations and where we place them to help out other stations. And of course, one of the challenges is there's a lot of call volume in the Charbonneau area, and it's getting across the bridge. But also, it's getting people back across the bridge. So a station placed in the Charbonneau area would also have the ability to come back across and help out in the Wilsonville area as well. So we look at it 2 ways. It's one, to put it where the call volume is based on the data that we found, and then also, how does it help the system? How does it help the rest of Tualatin Valley Fire and Rescue? So that station design and plan today is for a medic. And that would be able to transport patients, provide medical care, and then respond back across the bridge over into the Wilsonville core area as well. That answer?
So it would not be large enough to be a full truck company or anything like that?
Well, the intent right now is not, but we make different stations based on what we think future growth will be. So if you think we have a station by Raleigh Hills that right now just houses a medic, it's not physically built to hold an engine. In the future, our stations that can hold a medic will also be able to hold an engine. So if there's a lot of growth, if there's an increase in call volume, if there's a demand, if you will, then we want to have the flexibility and ability to do that. One of the challenges is building 30-year stations that are flexible enough to change how we deploy.
Yeah, over time.
And we don't want to tie our hands with any one type of station if it's only one way we can do it. And that sort of happened with the Raleigh Hills station. We've changed that model, that station model, so it can adapt to a full engine company.
So how much size do you need?
Property-wise?
Yeah.
Well, we're looking at a lot that's about an acre up in that Aloha South area, closer to Beaverton. That's a little bit small. It's going to be tight, and that might mean 2 stories if you go that route. With 2 acres, then we have a little bit of space where we can do it. We always like to have the community room too, which adds square footage, of course.
Yeah. All right. Gives us an idea then. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
Other questions?
Are these hotspots senior assisted?
I can't.
Are they all?
Yeah, I can't see close enough on the map, but what my local knowledge tells me is yes.
That they have been in the past, Counselor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. We could
Yeah.
probably call them out by name, but it's a significant number of calls. Yep.
Well, thank you so much for coming and giving us our update. Appreciate it. And now we're aware of the bond renewal. It'll be coming up mid-year this coming year, right?
May of 19, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you very much
Sounds
for having
good.
us. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Next up is citizens' input and community announcements, which is an opportunity for visitors to address council on things not on the agenda, also a time to address things that are on the agenda but not scheduled for public hearing. Staff and council will make every effort to respond to questions raised during this portion, either before the meeting ends or as soon as possible thereafter. We do ask you to keep your comments to just a couple, 3 minutes. And we have former city councilor, Mr. Bruce Barton, here to see us this evening. Good evening, sir.
I guess I need to say my name and all that stuff. Start.
Yeah, we do for the record. All your TV audience doesn't know who you are necessarily.
Bruce Barton. I live at 7290 Southwest Wilsonville Road, Wilsonville, Oregon. 29 years last Labor Day weekend.
Wow.
Basically, the main thing that I wanted was kind of hoping that would happen was the public hearing for the park, for the Boones Ferry Park. But then I see here it got moved to the December the 17th, which is not a problem as far as, you guys are all concerned, but it's a problem as far as I'm concerned because I'm not going to be here.
Okay.
I'm going to be in Las Vegas going to our granddaughter's graduation from the University of Las Vegas on the 18th. So that's why I can't be here. So I want to, even though I realize that also there's a planning commission meeting with a public hearing next week, I believe, or the 14th, whatever the 14th is, week from this Wednesday.
Yeah.
And possibility. And I don't know exactly whether I'll be able to attend that meeting at this time or not, but if I can, I will probably attend that one also. But the thing is that I wanted to express some suggestion and about the Boones Ferry Park. I did go to one of the meetings. Was held at the park, and it was very, very congenial, and etc. But one of the things that I was really surprised about was that there, in the planning of that park, there was no restaurant, even a thought about a restaurant. And I think that this City of Wilsonville is missing a great opportunity here by not doing something to put in the inn at Boones Ferry Landing or something of that nature. I'm talking about not a restaurant that like, for an example, like just off the, I mean, like the typical say, Ram Club or restaurant,
Sorry.
That's the 3-minute buzzer.
well,
Got a
I'm
big
gonna be-
crowd here tonight,
It might be
Bruce.
longer than 3 minutes. Anyway, but an N-type building. And the only thing that I can think of that comes close to that example, even though I'm not suggesting that be this particular, is the old spaghetti factory down on the waterfront. Is, an N-type restaurant. It's got, it's got beautiful insides, dark wood, all the kind of things that look like an inn. And I just think that that's the kind of a place that it would be needed there. And I think that probably the area would be between Boone's Ferry Road and the railroad there. There's approximately, 3 acres there? Probably can handle it. I'm not sure. But my suggestion is that the council appoint a committee to look into this. And I suggest that the people on the committee be the chairperson for the Parks and Rec Board. He could be the chair of this meeting or this group. The economic development, somebody from the city economic development department, somebody from the city attorney's office, and somebody from the Old Town neighborhood, and somebody from the bridge group, because the bridge is going to be right there also, kind of plan for that area. So get all the people that have a stake in it together, and then probably one citizen at large. And put together a committee and see just exactly if it would be feasible to even put something there. I don't know whether it is or not. But that could be, we contact some developers or some restaurant people or some things like that and determine whether something could work there. And I just think that it's a great opportunity, and for the city of Wilsonville to do something like this. So it would be a destination type place. You would get in your canoe up at the park Shampooey and paddle down and have lunch at the inn at Wilsonville. They're in at Boone Park. So that's kind of the thing, and that's basically all I wanted to really say.
All right, Mr. Cosgrove, could we pass this on to Mr. McCarty? He could even be asked to take a look at the video of the testimony and thereby get it all, even though he's not here, right?
Well, we can put it in the record. Just based on his comments tonight, we can make sure that the comments are inserted into the record for the city council.
I was thinking about communicating with the planning people, though, that are working on the parks plan, too.
Is this an initiative that you'd like us to undertake prior to?
I don't know that. I just would like to have Mr. McCarty be aware of this testimony before he brings this back to the city council.
Soha's in the audience, and Mike reports to, we can talk about this.
Okay.
Anyway, right here on this week, spokesman, study says city fails to maximize river. Well, this is one of the ways you can sure maximize the river here with putting a nice quality type in restaurant there.
Well, the gentleman that wrote that article is sitting in the back of the room, so maybe you could talk with him about his next article.
It'd be the place for anniversaries and birthdays and wedding party get-togethers and friends and neighbors and whatever, all kind of get together, that graduation things and so on. I just think that it would be a golden opportunity for something like that, and Wilsonville has nothing like that at this point. And what better place to take advantage of this over 100 year space area, space for something like that to happen. I think it would just be tremendous. I think it would be a big boost to the city of Wilsonville's economy.
So the other thing I was going to add is that I'm not sure exactly where it's at in the work plan, but the Arrowhead Creek planning area, which is something that Councilor Starr, I think, had talked about originally and became a council goal. We would study all that land, not necessarily Boone's Ferry Park, but all the land from the river all the way up through the Arrowhead Creek area. There might be some opportunities there to look at this. I will say for the piece of property he's talking about, which is owned by the city, has some major zoning and comprehensive plan challenges if you were to unwind that and make it commercial. So I'm not sure that that would be the right spot, but I think the sentiment that he's talking about is something that we've heard from the community on in terms of opening up the river for opportunities like that. So between the Arrowhead Creek area, what I'm suggesting is that the piece that we own probably will never be commercial unless you did a real turn on a dime here and told us to start planning for that. But there's opportunities for privately held land on the river.
Yeah, and there's property between the railroad and over to the concrete plant.
That's correct. And I think that would be part of the Arrowhead Creek planning area.
Yeah. So there may be different ways to approach it, but
yeah. But I'm just saying that the thing is that now is the time to start putting something together, thinking about it, planning it.
All right, sir. We'll think about it.
All righty.
Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you. Thank you. I have one other little comment. I think since it's been 15 years since I've been on the city council, and the thing is that what I really think is really cool that's happened during that 15 years, one of the things that I was really avid about when I was on the city council was why we didn't have the center part through all the way through on Wilsonville Road from one end of the town to the other end of town. And we didn't have it for a long time from about the elementary school, Beckman Elementary out to Beckman Road. And finally, I see here a few years ago, it was put in. And whoever was responsible for that, thank you.
That was the mayor.
Thank you, Mayor.
Lots of people wanted to work on it.
Bringing it up, how's that?
I brought it up every time we had a...
Yes, sir, I remember. I remember, yeah, I do.
Okay.
All right, thank you, sir.
Have a good time in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
We'll make sure that those comments are passed along both to the Planning Commission and they'll end up in your packet as well.
Okay, that's good. I don't see anybody else, but I don't have any other speaker cards, so I don't assume there's anybody else that wants to talk. So we can proceed then. Let's see here.
I have a letter.
Gotta find the right thing here. Yes, we received a letter from the mayor of Kitakata City. It's in your packet on page 269 out of 286, but it's fairly brief and I could read it to you. Dear Mr. Tim Knapp, I would like to extend my best wishes. On behalf of our delegation, I would like to thank you all for your kind and warm shared with us during our visit to celebrate the 30th anniversary of our sister city between Wilsonville and Kitakata. Thanks to that, we have had a very meaningful and valuable experience. With this visit as a new opportunity, we will activate the exchange program in the educational, cultural, and economic fields of both cities, and we will also promote further friendship through host town project for the 2020 Tokyo Olympic and Paralympic Games.
Going to get you over there eventually, Mayor.
I sincerely appreciate the 50th anniversary of Wilsonville City establishment and wish you continued success and prosperity. From the mayor of Kitakata City. So that was a nice acknowledgement of the time they had here. If you recall, during that smoky fire week that we had, which was really disappointing that they didn't see clear skies, but they were very gracious and they had a good time. So good relationship there. All right. Was going to go back to meetings here. Since last council meeting, have had the Clackamas County Coordinating Committee meeting, had JPAC, or the subcommittee meeting that meets about metro issues, and then I went to JPAC on the 18th of October. At the request of the cities of Clackamas County, I presented a amendment proposal to the adoption of the Regional Transportation Plan. That amendment was contained in wording from the Clackamas County Business Alliance, which wrote a letter requesting. The Clackamas County Coordinating Committee also wrote a letter to Metro requesting, and the Metropolitan Mayors Consortium wrote a letter. So I suggested that rarely have they had letters from three organizations, one a mayor's group, one a business group, and one a county government group, all requesting essentially the same thing, which was to commit to conducting a process after the first of the year through some kind of a task force with a limited duration that would talk about the vision for the different parts of the regional transportation system and how well those plans are progressing toward what they have called originally the 2040 vision, and how they interface. A lot of this is brought about by the tolling discussions on our freeway system, with a suggestion that they were going to push some of the people off the freeways and onto other modes of getting around. And the question is, well, if you're pushed off the freeway, do you have another mode to get around? Are there other connections? Do the light rail connections go where you want? Do the bus connections go where you would need to go? And how would this affect the people that most likely would be pushed off, which might be the lower income segment of our population? So all of that engendered a lot of discussion. My motion was seconded, and there was quite a little bit of discussion around the table talking about these concepts, at least in a way that has never been talked about before at JPAC in the years I've been there. And I thought there were some very thoughtful comments by Doug Kelsey, the head of TriMet, actually talking about whether they are achieving what they need to achieve in the long run. And so I thought that was helpful. After the helpful comments, they called for the vote, and I voted yes, and everybody else voted no. But we had some interesting discussion, and so this is part of the process part of the process of trying to get some dialogue going, and we will have to see with Lynn Peterson coming in as the new president, and the Metropolitan Mayors are also talking to wanting to open up some dialogue directly with Doug Kelsey, and so we're trying to set up an appointment time to do that. So these are kinds of discussions that pertain to the broader transportation systems across the region. And when people complain about traffic, I think we need to be talking about, are the systems that we have in place and are building and are hoping to have in place in coming decades going to be adequate to the job we're asking them to do? I think that's a fair question to ask, and so that's a pretty esoteric connection to fixing the traffic, but you got to start somewhere. So we are doing that. Other things, went to GPI, went to the Westside Economic Breakfast with Congressman Schrader and Congresswoman Bonamici, had some interesting discussion from them. Attended the monthly, quarterly Willamette Intake Facilities board meeting. No earth-shattering news there. Attended the ribbon cutting for 124th Avenue, which happened up in Tualatin, and they don't actually have any wheels rolling on the road yet. In fact, they say it'll probably be January, but they got the formal ribbon cutting done. It's all paved, it's not striped, and it's not open to the public yet, but it's getting pretty close. So there's all that happening. And then also had a meeting on with the committee of the Metropolitan Mayors that's working on regional issues and these negotiations kind of with Metro about how we're going to approach the overall transportation issues. So lots of that kind of stuff going on. Tomorrow's election day. Please, if anybody has not voted, take the time. There's a nice big white box out in the front drive around here, the side drive around on the building, and you can drop your ballot without even getting out of the car once you get it all prepared. Saw a steady stream of people today as I came into the meeting, driving through. It's quite interesting. Just almost never ending. Also upcoming is Veterans Day, and that's next Monday. Is
Correct. Yeah, there will be a Korean War Memorial
service
for anybody that would like to attend.
at 11 a.m. on Monday, the 12th. Okay. At the Korean War Memorial in Town Center Park. And I think that is probably all I need to do on that topic. There is one topic that's not on the agenda that is mayor's business that I wanted to introduce. We talked about this at work session upstairs, and that pertains to the actions that are taking place on the Aurora Airport. As many of the public know, but probably not everyone, there is a proposal being presented to do some expansion work on the Aurora Airport. That expansion work would include extending the runway, reworking some taxiways, strengthening a certain amount of the existing runway, adding some, purchasing some additional acreage for safety area along the south end and all that sort of thing. This council has taken the position that we were not in support of that. Our Charbonneau neighborhood has been consistently not in support of that. The dynamic is such that the emergency board at the state level is considering this proposal. They actually had it in front of them last month, and they postponed consideration until December. In the interim, they have asked the Oregon State Solutions Group out of Portland State to do an assessment of the situation and determine what the facts are and what the contentions are by proponents and opponents. All of that is pretty esoteric, and there have not been any public places, public processes, at least since 2012, the last time the master plan was in process, and even then a lot of people weren't aware of it. But there hasn't been an opportunity for the public and affected parties, impacted parties, to really have a chance to give their input on it. So the proposal that we are making is that Wilsonville host an opportunity for all those parties to have some input in a formal public hearing process. And given the time constraints, that has to happen before the next emergency board meeting in December. The target date that staff has indicated to us would be possible would be the 27th of November, a Tuesday. We would, if we were to do this, send invitations to all the people that we know are interested, and we would publicize in the press that it would be open to everyone to come and listen or to speak if they would like to on any side of that question. We would specifically also invite the county commissioners from Marion County, who are the host county for the airport, Clackamas County, which is also impacted on the north side of the airport as we are, the legislative people from those districts and from other legislative people who are involved in that committee, and business people and residents, around the area in addition. So it would be hopefully fairly comprehensive. We might end up with a fairly small turnout. We might end up with, 150 people. There's no way to know exactly how that would go. And yet I feel strongly that given the concerns that we have about transparency and about doing public decisions out in the public, it's important that we take this step. The application is for authorization to apply for $37 million in federal aviation funds to do this work on the airport. The master plan approved in 2012 suggests that this is a $7,088,000 project. So somehow we got to 500% of $7,088,000 in the proposal without, again, public airing of what that covers or how it's allocated or why that kind of increase. I would expect we would hear comments on all those kinds of things, as well as reasons from people why they think it would be a good thing and reasons from people why they, would oppose that project. And I think it's appropriate that we would do so. No other entity is set up to conduct this kind of a hearing. We would also invite and have already alerted the people at Oregon Solutions that we're considering this and would expect that they would have an interest in this input before they would make their report to the emergency board in December also. So that is the proposal. It's up to this council whether they wish to do so. It's a little out of the ordinary for us, given that the airport is not within our jurisdiction or within our county. It does have effects from the perception of many of our residences, especially on the south side of the river, but also here on the north side as more intensive uses would come to that airport. So I offer this as a proposal that I think is appropriate. It's up to this council whether you wish to make a commitment to conduct this and to ask staff to put the resources into making it happen. So questions or suggestions or a motion if you feel so inclined.
Your Honor, I would move that we direct staff to put together organize what we need to in order to hold such a public hearing. The date we discussed earlier in work session was November 27, which I believe is a Tuesday. That would be the essence of it.
Okay, thank you. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Anyone would like to comment or has questions?
No. I just would comment that again, as I said upstairs, I think the transparency piece of it and the ability to learn more about all the things, because I think there's just a lot more going on that I'm just not aware of. So the more we can gather information, I always think that's better. And then having it be where everybody can listen is also an excellent idea.
All right. Anybody else?
I agree.
All right. If that's all the comment people have, I'll ask for the vote. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passes 5-0. Thank you to the staff. I know that's going to add to your workload. I think it's an important piece.
Mark says no problem.
For the record, Mark's not here either.
We'll be talking in the morning.
All right, that's enough from me. I'll pass to the council then, starting with Council President Starr.
Well, as you said, tomorrow's election day, so please exercise your right to vote, everybody. That would be great. And the second thing is I attended 2 weeks ago. I'm on the Willamette River Locks Commission, and it's a commission appointed by the governor to try to figure out what to do with the Willamette locks. And it would appear that we're moving towards some type of public entity to try to keep the locks open, and how we figure that out. Oh my gosh, the layers of government that I'm being exposed to. But we are making headway to try to find some way to keep the locks open, which is important for Wilsonville because one of our companies, Wilsonville Concrete, needs that. And I think it's probably the only commercial application, or one of very, very few, but the primary commercial application for this. So that's the direction that we're heading. It was wonderful to see a number of state representatives all agreeing on how to do that. So I think we're onto something, and I think this is going to be a process that lasts a fair amount of time, but it's a transition from the Army Corps of Engineers over to some type of commission that will, or public entity that will handle it here. And there may be opportunities for private development to kind of sister up to it, but the management of the locks themselves, it appears that we're headed to some type of public operation, which is probably the right thing to do, which is the right thing to do in my opinion. So that's it.
Thank you very much. Unless you want to do any community events, have you got?
I'll just skip me.
It's on the reader.
All right, that's fine. It's on the radar board now. Okay. Councilor Stevens.
Thank you. So I attended a library board meeting on October 24th, and I'm pleased to tell everyone that in their annual report, they have 188 volunteers that serve at the library and have put in 11,550 hours last year.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, and I ran into a neighbor of mine with her two daughters who are, I'm not sure, 5th grade, 7th grade, and they volunteer at the library. They love it, you know. So it's not just adults, it's kids too are helping shelve books and do what they can. So we have a really robust library. The other thing about that, at the library board meeting, most of the meeting was taken up with a presentation from a couple representatives from PGE. And they have a program that they're talking about putting in charging stations for EV, electric vehicles, at using some of the parking spaces at the library. The board was enthusiastic about that, especially since myself and another board member both have EVs, electric vehicles. So there was a lot of enthusiasm there. And everybody liked the idea. There was a discussion about the aesthetics and giving up spaces because the infrastructure is fairly large, and just how that was all going to work. And then I had a conversation with staff a little bit about how the contract with PGE will all work out. So I think it's a really good idea, but I think there are some hurdles we need to get to that space where we can actually take advantage of this program. You want to add?
Well, it stems from a conversation that we had with PGE about taking advantage of pilot projects. This is one of those pilot projects where there's going to be 4 or 5 in the region.
Right.
They have 2 deals signed. One is with a private operator that owns a parking lot in a shopping district, I believe, and then the other's in the city of Milwaukee.
Yeah, they're looking for 5 or 6.
Right.
It's called Electric Avenue.
This will be on the southern end of the region that they're looking at.
Right, and so they would pay for all the infrastructure, and after 10 years, I think it would become ours, is the idea. But there was an idea about what happens if there's maintenance needs, who would take care of that. So I was talking with Barbara about how that would all be worked out in terms of that agreement with PGE. So a few hurdles, but I think it could be really great because you do see several electric vehicles at the station, at the library, and also if somebody's going up and down I-5 and needing a place to plug in as they make a way from Portland to Salem, stop in at the library, have a cup of coffee at Starbucks, hang out at our library, come to the city.
There's a nice park right across the way.
Nice park, all those kinds of things, because it could be a draw for the city too. So in several different ways, plus provide a service to.
So where's the decision point, yes or no?
It's right now, it's currently under legal review. We've given them comments about their stock contract. Ms. Kerber has met with their staff, PGE staff, and I believe they had a conversation recently. So we're negotiating the details of that legal agreement right now.
So
We'll come back to council.
Right, and the library board was really supportive, wanting to know the details like that about the aesthetics. There's a planter out, but the PGE would like the spaces to be closest to Wilsonville Road, and there's a row of, I think, for visibility, because they want to promote this project. And there's a planter there that might be able to be used, or a space there but there was some concern about how the structure, because it's a fairly large structure that provides the power to these charging stations. And so, but they would be second-level charging stations, I think they call them, so they're pretty rapid turnaround to get on your way.
All right, sounds
So, yeah, so that would be great. The other thing that was fun that I want to tell people about is I went to a movie at Regal Cinema here in Wilsonville, and I went a little early, walked in, and there's our smart transit director, Dwight Brushauer, up on the big screen doing an ad for Smart, and they're playing Edgar Winter, Free Ride in the background, talking about free ride. And there were quite a few staff people in several of the shots. And so it was delightful to see that. So promoting riding the bus at the movie theater, what a great way to reach out and let other people know about our great transit system here. And Dwight should have been in the movies.
Mr. Bershier's idea, probably.
Yeah. It actually was.
And
Yes.
he does a really fine job.
Sounds like him, yeah.
He's very good. He's like he's a pro. He walks off the bus and does this whole thing about riding
He's not afraid
smart.
of the bright light. Some people will, but Dwight shines.
No, that's great.
It was wonderful. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Leahan.
Yes, well, we might mention that we got a very high rating, or there was an article for our transit system being one of
That was part of our national citizen survey. They were just taking
Right.
that data, comparing it to others cities.
that were one of the top
Yeah.
cities in the country in terms of satisfaction with our transit system.
Yep.
I don't know if that's partly because some of the big ones are going downhill fast, but we're very popular. We had a big turnout for McMiniman's History Pub. I won't say it was because of me, but there it was.
Standing room only. Standing room only. Oh my gosh, I got there what I thought was on time, and I was squished against the back wall, against the back table. It was packed.
It was packed, yeah.
Those things always do well.
They always do well,
Yeah.
too.
Charlotte did a great job, too. She was talking about the cemeteries.
Oh, cool.
I was actually talking about the unmarked cemeteries in our midst. So, but a lot of people seemed very interested. And other than that, the only thing I would like to mention is that the time changed. So evenings are much darker, and kids are out and about in pretty dark hours, so it's really important to be careful as drivers, careful as pedestrians, be sure everybody is wearing clothes that can be seen. This is a hazardous time of the year,
Yep.
especially after the time change because it's dark so quickly after school. So that was all.
Thank you. Councilor Ackerball.
Maybe this is on our announcements. It's going across the screen. I don't know, but we have the leaf drop off on the 17th coming up, and and that's at the Republic Services. I think 9 to 2. You can drop off your leaves. I was also reminded this last week. I saw one of the kids in our neighborhood raking up the leaves in the street along the gutter, and I thought, wow, what a great girl. But also, I think we have some dry forecasts coming, but as it gets rain, something for us all to keep kind of an eye on and pitch in where we can to keep leaves out of going into the gutter and keep that space clear. So you can take them to the leaf drop-off on the 17th, which is a much better place for those leaves. So
I would say that young person is in their own category. Because
gold
most
stars,
people are
like
pushing them out into the street.
she was raking them up. Yeah,
So that's a responsible young person.
it is.
All right, thank you much. That will bring us to consent agenda, please.
The consent agenda is the minutes of the September 17, 2018 council meeting.
Is there a motion on consent?
Your Honor, I move that we adopt the consent agenda as read. Is it accept? Approve.
Approve.
There's a
Second.
Moved and seconded, we approve consent agenda as read. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, passes 5-0. Bringing us to our public hearing section. Do we need to open this formally, Ms. Jacobson, or?
You can just continue it.
Since there's nobody in the audience that might want to testify, or there was, but he's done it, you can just go ahead and you
Your Honor, I move that we continue resolution number 2702 to December 17th.
Second.
Moved and seconded, we continue, or that we, yes, continue this resolution 2702 to December 17th. This is at the request of staff to complete some more work on this before it comes forward.
Correct.
Any questions? If not, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, passes 5-0. Bringing us to continuing business, ordinance 829 on second reading.
Ordinance number 829, second reading, an ordinance of the City of Wilsonville amending Wilsonville Code Sections 7.418, 9.200, and 9.400. And I would just note, since staff isn't here for the second reading, that we have received no comments since the first reading.
Okay, did we close the public hearing or continue it to second reading?
You closed it.
We closed it, so I don't need to read the public hearing
No.
format again then, right? Okay, ordinance City of Wilsonville amending Wilsonville Code. Questions? Comments?
No.
Are you ready to vote?
Yes.
All right, I'll ask for a roll call vote then, please. Oh, I guess we should have a motion first. You're really a stickler for that sort of thing. Is there a motion on ordinance number 829
Your
on
Honor, I
second
move
reading?
that we adopt ordinance number 829 on second reading.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Now I will ask for a roll call vote, please.
Counselor Stevens?
Yes.
Council President Starr?
Yes.
Counselor Lehan?
Yes.
Counselor Ackerval? Yes. Mayor Knapp?
Yes, passes 5-0. Thank you very much. Bringing us to city manager business.
I thought it might be a good opportunity for me to update you on the neighborhood meeting that we had with the Memorial Park folks that were interested in that. I think we had about 20 people show up, and we kind of laid out how the police respond to those things, also listened to their concerns, and then kind of put some improvements into 3 different kind of broad buckets, one being immediate, second being short-term, which is like 6 to 12 months, what we could do, and the more long-term options are 12 months and beyond, just because they're more expensive and will take more time to plan. But in the immediate category, we committed that we would put some, have you seen the extruded curb kind of parking lot things that they put out in gravel parking lots?
Oh, yeah.
It's just raised medians, basically. We installed some down there to not eliminate, but certainly make it a lot harder to do cookies down there. So that has been done. I saw that work being done today.
It'll make it more expensive. I don't know if it'll be.
Yeah, the one thing I did know, because they sent me a picture, and it looks like it could blend right in with the gray.
Yeah, but the first guy that does it will have a repair bill.
I did ask them to put yellow paint on those so that if you do take them out, you really had to be wanting to. We committed to more police presence down there, both during the day, but specifically after the park closes. The chief also committed to putting some bike patrol down there because they can get into places that, although bike patrol this time of year, I don't know what outfits they wear, but they can't wear the short shorts that they normally wear in the summer months, but that's going to happen as well. We told them that we would close the gate to the gravel parking lot to the river shelter during daylight savings hours and then reopen that once the rental season opens up. And that has happened. We're going to increase the lighting near the river shelter with some different kinds of lights. Right now, they're really kind of dim and they don't cast off enough light. So we're going to look at that. Mr. Werps, our police chief, is going to be working with Barbara and adopting the Clackamas County's exclusion policy. So if we have a bad actor down there, we can put them on the list. The Clackamas County Sheriff's Department already has a process for that. So it's going to be working with Barbara to implement that here locally. And we've also installed some trees along the back line of the fence this summer in response to some of the concerns about the people using that parking lot. That's the immediate, the short-term options that we're looking at are installing some cameras down there. There are challenges with that because we don't have any fiber. You need the conduit to have an off-site server. We have some interim things that we could do down there that might run in the range of about $20,000. One of the other things that we could do, not necessarily for a safety thing, but this would be more for law enforcement response. Some of these license plate readers that they attach to traffic units, where they can, anybody that comes in or out, they read the plate and they can tell whether they have warrants or whatever. If we position this at the entrance to the gate, we would have that data. We would only need to pull it out if we had an incident, and we would have that information. That's about $15,000 just for the unit to install, 15 to 20. But that's something we could do in the near future. Some of the longer term ones, the two longer term ones is that, we have the pump station going in down there. It's going to require us to lay some conduit so we can do remote stuff for that pump station as well. We would want to continue to run that fiber if we're going to do anything to the ball fields down there. That's a longer term project. And then the other one, the last one, is to pave the gravel lot, and that's around $1 million. So the longer term ones are probably not as easy, but certainly the immediate stuff, and just with more monitoring, hopefully that'll take care of 90% of it, and then the other 10% will have to be done with more capital improvements and investments. I'd be happy to answer any questions. Chief Werps attended that meeting. Mr. Stone in our IT department attended, as well as Mike McCarty and Gina Trolla.
Sounds like you had a pretty robust public turnout also.
Yeah, we had a good turnout for that one, just local specific issue. Like I said, I think there was about 20, and most of them lived along the property line there, familiar with the issues.
So that
Councilor
was,
Stevens?
thank you. That was Renaissance and Daydream Ranch people
Both
attended?
subdivisions were represented.
Okay.
Yes.
Both came. Okay, thanks.
Councilor Starr?
It was my understanding that we were going to do a sweep of the park area and just make sure no one was living there and it was clean and
Yep,
where
those
people could have. So
yes,
does that
those
happen?
Instructions were given, and I'm not aware of any people that were specifically found down there, because this time of year too is probably less likely to find that as a problem, more in the summer months. But yes, the chief has done shift briefings for all the different shifts, and so they're aware of, that we're going to take a little stronger approach to the facility.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
All right, thank you very much. Any legal?
Just quickly, since we didn't have executive session, and I can talk about this in open session, we did have our Land Use Board of Appeals hearing on Salt Creek Metro decision or determination. We had oral argument on that on Thursday, and we're supposed to get a decision by November 26th from LUBA as to whether or not LUBA finds it has jurisdiction. And if it finds it does not, then it's over. If it finds that it does, then it will have to rule on the merits of the petitioner's claim. So that's where that stands, so stay tuned.
All right, thank you. Anything else for the good of the council here? We have a urban renewal meeting following immediately. All right, I will then call City Council adjourned at 8:54.
It's almost 10 in real time.
Right there.
And anyone need a break? Are we? Okay, I'm going to call to order Wilsonville City Council, City Urban Renewal Agency meeting for November 5 at 8:54 p.m. November 5, 2018. And I'm going to let Board Member Starr handle the officiating with regard to this meeting, because I have a personal interest in something that could be construed to be the topic, even though it's kind of tangential. So I'm going to step aside on this and ask Board Member Starr.
Thank you. Can we have a roll call?
Board Member Stevens?
Here.
Board Member Akkerval? Here. Board Member Lehan?
Here.
Board Member Starr?
Here.
And Mayor Knapp is recused.
Okay.
Chair. That's right.
I'm not seeing anybody from the public that might want to contribute any input. So, there is someone out there. Do you have any input that you would like to give? No? Okay. So moving on, could our city attorney read the consent agenda?
URA Resolution Number 290, a resolution of the City of Wilsonville Urban Renewal Agency authorizing the city manager to execute Amendment Number 1 to the Professional Services Agreement with OTAC, Inc. for the 5th Street Kinsman Road Extension Project. And the second item is the minutes of the June 18, 2018 and October 15, 2018 URA meetings.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I move that we adopt the consent agenda as read.
I'll second.
We have a second. So I'll just ask for all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. No opposed. Motion carries 4-0. Any other? No? Good enough. We're done.